hand, you should be able, yeah, that should be right there.
Okay, I'm good. All right. No more coming in right now. I'll let them in. I'll shut up and mute myself.
Okay. I think we're going to roll. So first of all, welcome everyone. See Jill Starrett laughing at, maybe she's laughing at me or Greg Depew or our conversation. We already got a chat message, so that's good. First of all, good to see everybody. I've got a panel view, so I'm seeing a lot more people. Last week when I did this, I was seeing a row of people, so you had to be fortunate enough to sit in the front row, Becky Peralt, for me to be able to see things. But now I can see like 20 to 30 people, and I can scroll through. So once again, I just would like to say thank you to everybody for all the work you're doing. It's been an interesting ride, and I, you know, you saw the message that came out, and we're going to spend some time talking about the message that came out from Kelly Sanders today. But really what that message doesn't say is what we probably already know. Likelihood of us returning to school on May 1st is somewhere in the single-digit percentiles. That's why we're planning forward into May. So this looks very much like we're going to continue for some period of time. So first of all, thank you for all you're doing already. And then we made some adjustments, and we'll talk through some of those adjustments as we go forward to see where we go and how we do it. First of all, attendance clarification. I just was asked to throw this back one more time. And I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. Do not stress about attendance. If somebody is connected with you during the week, mark them present. This week it's on Thursday, otherwise it's on Friday. It's being used simply as a check to see that they engaged. Do not, for any reason, go back and change attendance for somebody who turned something in over the weekend because they panicked and they said, oh my God, I'm marked absent now. Our hope is that as you're communicating during the week and you're making those assignments missing, that they're seeing that, and that's their impetus. We're not asking them to change attendance. Remember, for your own part and to help you not stress, we're not sending attendance to the state, and we're taking attendance for one day a week. So think about our level and how we're using it, and don't let that be a stress to you, because that's simply our check-in with students. Your grades need to be different than that, so that's attendance. I was asked if we're using it for CCR. We haven't even had that conversation right now about whether we're using that attendance for CCR. Don't share this with our students right now, but we cut the end of the year off at third quarter for them for attendance for their graduation. And so if any of you have seniors, Becky Peralt, good to see you. You know, we cut it off at the end of third quarter because that's when we were there. So it's really hard to build into right now. So don't panic on attendance. Spring break, again, if you've assigned a longer term project over spring break and you have it due shortly after spring break, that's totally fine. Just please don't assign new work over spring break for students to feel like they need to do it over spring break. So we're trying to have you take as much of a break as you can. And I know you well enough to know some of you will try and do that, and some of you will be like, oh my gosh, I got to get this ready for afterwards. And you know, we know that spring break travel is limited to like living rooms and lofts or whatever other places you have in your house. So it's different this year, but we want families to try and take a break, and we want you to try and take a break. I'll be around if anybody needs to get a hold of me. So I'll be in the area. I'll be online. I'll be responding. If you need to get a hold of me for something, please do. But that's that. I'm going to share my screen. We got people tracking questions just like we did. I'm going to share my screen and jump back into this whole conversation about the new stuff that came out. So you see here, I'll make this a little bit bigger. You might have this up in front of you. But some changes, and this is really a response to our survey, and what we got is full feedback from our survey. So we did some work on this too, so I'm going to share a little bit with you as we walk this through. Again, we made that comment last week about essential learning targets. Please, please, please hold yourself to essential on the work that you're asking students to do. We've asked families to communicate with teachers if there are workload issues. I think that's starting to level itself out in some ways in our building, and I felt like especially this week, that's balanced. Fridays are the big change. So you can continue to work on tasks that haven't been completed for students who study. You can meet with teachers. We're not assigning work on Friday. You're not assigning work to be due necessarily on Friday. You're assigning work to be due Monday through Thursday. And if you need to connect with a student or something because they didn't turn it in, that's more the focus of Friday. So it's that shift where you're not going to be quote unquote teaching on Friday. You're going to be in a support connect role. You can use that, and we'll look down further as we see more about that. So the weekly layout, in my mind and from the feedback that I've heard from many teachers, is if you can lay out your week at the beginning of the week so students can see what's due on what day for the week, that's the best format. If you can make sure things are due, and as much as possible, kick that end time of when things are due to 11:59 p.m. That's more beneficial, just depending on when some of our students are still working jobs. Some of our students are watching family members and little children because their parents are working jobs. Some of our students are just fine and are sleeping until 11 because they don't want to get up earlier. And so there's that whole mix of people that we have, and we're trying to accommodate all those different schedules because they're not on our school schedule. So if you think about that, and the second part is plan for no more than 30 minutes per day per class, and that's the 4 days a week. So that when we say bear down to the essentials, we're truly talking about really pushing down to the essentials. We'd like our high school and middle school students to be not engaged in student learning more than 6 hours a day. So we talked through that weekly schedule. The one thing that is a caveat to that is if you're giving an assessment, and sometimes assessments cannot be held to 30 minutes just isn't enough time for an assessment. So if you need to have an assessment be longer, absolutely, totally okay. If you're observing that assessment or there's a due date, just please don't sign additional work on that day when you're giving that assessment. So keep in mind and I know some of you are using Zoom and all these other things to watch students taking assessments, and it's working well and it's different, and but that you can go longer. Just make sure that you don't sign additional work on that day. Staff expectations, not tremendously different than where we were. Identify essential learning outcomes. Minimally need to, this may be a change for some people. I think most people for sure are doing this. Maybe a little bit of a change for some people. So minimally need to virtually instruct or check in with students on a weekly basis, whether it be recorded videos of the teacher or it might be a video conference with students. So this synchronous word drives me crazy, synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous is just you're teaching a live session with your students. Asynchronous, you have a recorded session with students. So there's a word that Greg likes, is bifurcate. So it's a bifurcated synchronous or asynchronous. Don't listen to any of that. Just know that you either do them live in person or you're doing recorded. Phone calls with students, Google Hangouts meets with students, any of those are appropriate. You can keep your current office hours. We worked really hard. There was at one point, there was a conversation of, hey, we're going to change this and we're going to have teachers do collaboration 2 hours on Friday, and then you're going to have 2 hours of grading and you're going to have 2 hours of office. We took that away and just say, keep your office hours, use that time the way you need it on Friday to get the things done. If you don't have time to score assessments, use missing, put it in as missing, even if it hasn't been turned in, just look and see if it's been turned in or not. That's as good a cue as anything that you can give students and families that things aren't being done that are supposed to be done. So use that. As always, you know, we want to be flexible. Weekly attendance is on Friday. It's tomorrow because we don't have Friday this week. So there's that. This next part in blue, we have talked about a lot. And I'm going to flip back off of this, and I'm going to stand back up here so you can see me. This one's a little bit different. It's something that we've been doing and having conversations along the way, and there's a lot of people doing this really well. So other people we're kind of missing a little bit on this, and we've learned a lot as an administrative team and as a counseling staff over the last 2 weeks as well. When I was a teacher, I absolutely hated to make a parent phone call. I hated it. I didn't want to do it. Is there anybody who hates making parent phone calls out there? Raise your hand if you're that person. It's totally fine if you are that person. It sucked. I didn't want to do it. In no way, absolutely no way would I want to make that parent phone call. If I could find a way around that parent phone call, I would find a way around that parent phone call. Here's the problem with that right now. We don't see these people in person. So if we're putting it in PowerSchool and they're not responding to us, sending an email, they say, hey, your PowerSchool has updates. That goes into their email. And if we send an email, they're getting it in the same place. And they're not responding to any of that. So we're asking that you please, if you have students who are not engaging, get on Google Voice, text or call. I don't care whether you text or call. Either one of them has been working, but make that reach and then engage us if they're not responding to those things. So please, 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 if you need help setting up Google Voice, I put Greg on the docket last week. I can put any one of us can all do that, help you with that if you're struggling with it. You cannot use your NB Excellence email to set it up. You got to set up just another Gmail account for it, but then it works extremely well. So please, please, I don't plead often. This is a plead to use text or use voicemail and calling those people to make that connection. So that will help. And then we'll be there to support the engagement where we need to outside of that. So, so that's that. I'm going to flip back to sharing my screen because I should have just gone off screen. Then on Friday the 24th, that will be a collaboration curriculum scope and sequence day. We'll put together a schedule for that day. We don't have it locked yet, but there is going to be, think district-wide team, primary course team type of collaboration to get down to the essentials. So a lot of you are doing that already. This is a day just to reinforce that, continue that work, and then prepare to go forward. And then May 1st, take a look at how that time is being used. Again, we keep the 2 scheduled office hours. We have them already, not a change at all for us on that Friday from any other day that we have. And then you use that time to connect with students and families. You use that time to do your grading. You use that time to have office hours, all those different things that are in there. So it really just is a day of no new instruction and a day to catch up and close the week. And that was significantly out in front in our survey. Over the second thing in our survey was keep it the way it is, keep the 5 days a week the way it is. That was the second vote. So we're moving to this really because that was the feedback that we got. Grading. We're going to continue to give graded marks for the 4th quarter. I'm struggling with the way number 1 is written. We're going to encourage you to do the best type of assessments you can do during this time. Authentic as possible. Of course, we would always do that. But sometimes authentic isn't realistic right now. So we're kind of in that world. If calculated marks don't accurately represent the student in a given content area, you can do an override. This might be the time when you override more than you ever have. We very seldom use the override feature. And if we get close to the end of the year and we're in that format, I'm expecting potentially we'll have some of those conversations. Grading, if you can get things in the grade book, and even if it's literally turned in and missing, where you're just throwing missing on the ones that are missing, if you don't have time to get a grade in there right away and go through them and grade them until the end of the week, but you say, hey, something's due on a Tuesday at midnight and it's Wednesday and you're running through them and you see somebody who hasn't turned them in, flip missing in your grade book for those that you don't have, and at least that's a trigger to parents and students that something needs to be done. Of course, mark student assignments late if they're after the due date. You'll see this little note on the bottom. 4th quarter, we are planning to give those marks. We pulled away for 3rd quarter. We are planning to give those marks for 4th quarter. So that's the run through. We figured that there would be questions, and I see there's a number of comments in there. So I think Trudy is tracking some of those. So I'm going to flip back to my screen and then maybe jump in and try and answer some questions as we go. Trudy, do you want to just ask questions and I'll try and respond to them?
Sure.
Or ask, or tell people to ask their question and then we'll work that way?
I don't care. One of the questions was, does this check-in need to be done via video? Could it be done through a Google Hangout or Google Chat?
Yes, check-in can be Google Hangout, Google Chat, does not have to be video, but it's something beyond, I'm just emailing stuff out and having people email stuff back in. Does that make sense? So it's one step beyond that. I'm just going to send information to you and you're going to send information back. It's some type of two-way communication.
Can it be an optional drop-in or does it have to be mandatory for those?
Can be optional. What you're trying to do is make sure that you're there and able to connect with those students who might need help or support. So you're offering that opportunity for them. You're going to reach out to those students who you feel like you need to meet with, and other ones do optional. I saw some really cool observations this week when I was going through of people doing, whether it be optional or whether it being full class sessions. And really great conversations were happening in those. So seeing those work really well.
That one I think we're okay. For students who have someone working directly with them in SLAC, is the protocol to reach out to the staff member about the student first before reaching out to the parents ourselves, or should we always directly contact parents, no matter if they have a staff member assigned to them?
And that's a really good question because we've got layers of support for a lot of children right now. And I'm going to say it's really beneficial for you to reach out as the teacher. And then if you don't get a hold of them, or even reach out as a teacher, get a hold of them, connect with the SLA, say, I talked to them about this, this is what they need to work on. The SLA is now supporting you in your work with that and with that connection. If you don't reach them, the SLA is saying, I know that Mr. Council tried to reach out to you yesterday. He was trying to set up a call and you did not respond. Can we set up a time with him that will work? It'll help to facilitate that type of communication. So please do, yes.
Can I just add on to that also?
Yes.
So the other thing is like if I call a parent or a SEER SLA calls a parent, we only have so much information we can share, and some parents will ask questions about how they can support their kid. And so you guys have specific things within your class that parents can be doing to help their kids. So it is beneficial for you to reach out to them as well, because you're able to kind of walk the parent through some of that. Whereas like, I feel sometimes not equipped to do that, even though I'm fine reaching out to the parent, but I have limited information that I can share. There was a question on how you can text students. Is there a way to see their cell phone number?
So for a very few students, we have their cell phone number actually in Infinite Campus. So some parents have actually loaded their student's cell phone number in. If not, if you talk to parents and if you text the parent and you get in a communication with a parent, I've never had a situation, or very seldom had a situation, where a parent wouldn't give me their child's cell phone number if I'm communicating from like my Google Voice number, or if I'm communicating from a school number. And that's what I would encourage. So I think you talk to the parent and you ask them if they're comfortable with that, because otherwise that parent is choosing to be the go-between with that student for your communication, and that's communication that you use. I see Leah just popped this up. Remind 101. So there's that. Remind allow students to put in their cell phone numbers for you, so you don't see their cell phone numbers. There's another one that I can't remember right now. It starts with a G. I don't know why I remember it starts with a G, but I can't remember what it is. But there's a couple things out there. We'll try and throw some of those in our communication stuff. Group Me is the other one. Thank you. Thank you. I'm seeing it from a couple other people. Yes. Thank you.
That's it right now for questions.
Okay. So if people have questions, just unmute yourself and ask. We shared that information. We're trying to make it as clear as we can. understanding that we can't be together and actually have these conversations. So this is the best way we know how. So if you've got questions, just unmute yourself and ask, or throw them in there and we'll keep looking.
I'll jump in here and just say that one question that came up before in there and I answered was, I don't know which parent is at home and which parent is at work. And I guess my answer always to that is go ahead and call parents at work. This is their child, the most important thing in their life. If a parent were to say to you, why are you calling me at work? Go ahead and throw me under the bus. Say, Mr. Depew said I should. But go ahead and call parents at work. That's not a problem.
And don't be afraid if you can't reach parents to go through the emergency contacts on their list, because that's their connection back. So it's a pain. I get it. It's just, that's where we are right now because we can't see these children in person. So for those people that we're not able to connect with, that's our reach.
Michael,
Are there any grading questions as we go?
There's
Gotten a few of those emails. What?
There's some conversation going on here. It says, Becky says, the only issue with Remind for 7th graders is if they are under the age of 13, you can't send them individual messages. And then Leah responded saying, Becky, I think you can if they use their email to sign up rather than their phone number. And then Becky said, I usually just use their school email. Then because that is where it would be anyway.
I'm taking this.
So here's the thing. If you use Remind and they use, and I'm seeing Leah in the corner and I'm seeing Becky like second row left down, just to see, picture my screen. So if you use that, here's my belief. If they put the Remind app onto their phone, they have that with them. They're not going to look at their Chromebook to get it. And we have a better chance of connecting with them even that way. We don't? Leah's saying no. Leah, can you talk? Like unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, they don't need the Remind app. They sign up with either their email or their phone number. You're the only person that needs the Remind app because you're the one that's going to send out the messages. They shouldn't have the app at all. They don't need it.
So if you're sending it to their email, how is that different than sending them an email?
It's not. It's just that you can send, like, if I send a text to students in the group and some students have it in their email, it's still, they all get the same message from me, whether it goes as a text or an email. Most of my kids have chosen to do the text format, but there are a few that do it via email.
Okay.
It just avoids me having to send an email to a few and then a text to others. It's all the same starting point for me.
Got it. So it's easier on your end.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Thanks.
Michael, Donna Malone has a question. Donna, you want to unmute and say it?
Yeah, I continue to have a couple of students who just, despite all the help I've gotten from admin, they just do not connect. And they're missing appointments over and over and over again. I mean, ultimately, what are we to do about these kids?
We continue.
It's down every day.
Yep. And we continue to try. It's all we can do. I don't ever want to say we're going to give up. We'll continue to try and contact parents. We're going to continue to push. At the same time, we don't know what their life's like right now. We did have one family, and this just so everybody understands kind of the different picture for people. We had one family that is homeschooling their child for the rest of the year. And they love every teacher that they had. They said everything was great. They're just working 2 jobs that they're afraid of losing. They're not able to support their child. So they homeschooled them, and then they put, when they homeschooled them, they left them in 2 classes in school so they could stay connected. And then they said, hey, next fall, we're going to re-enroll them full time. And I even said, hey, we'll try and pull back. Well, this, and they said just too much for them. And it wasn't a blame. It was actually complimentary to our school, but it's just too much for some. And so to Donna's point, we just keep trying and we do our best. And then, we go to the level that they can. We get them to SST. If, some of those are SST kids that we talk about. We still are meeting with SST every week. So we're talking about how we support students through that as well.
I will
Great
add-
question. It's just so different for people. We have
Uh-oh, he froze. Look at that. I will add, since he's frozen, is he frozen for everybody?
a very big variety.
Back.
He's freezing up.
I will add that we've called, Ryan Strauss has gone. Michael, you froze, you're freezing. So we will, Ryan
Yeah,
Strauss
we all froze.
go out and talk to, he went today and actually we ended up getting in touch with the parents. So that was kind of successful. I don't know what happened to you, Michael, here. You're freezing every now and then. Chris Visti, I know you have a question. He's going to be the best to answer this. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay. My question is, since we're not going to be doing new instruction on Fridays anymore, should we, and this is maybe more math specific than other courses, but should we be instructing then every course every day, Monday through Thursday? So like each of our subjects we'll see them every day of those 4, even though like I've been following the color day schedule. And so some weeks I would only see kids 3 days a week. And other times I would see them 4 days a week. Should we meet with them, teach them new content then all 4 days for all of the classes, or skip a day every now and then? Because math is a day-to-day thing.
Yeah, so you can do 4 days a week. That's the structure that we have. I think where people were doing 4 days a week, there was confusion because there are some people doing 5 days a week, and not all together in our school, but like across the district, and that really created some confusion. And I think that's part of what got us to Monday through Thursday with a Friday off, which guarantees 4 days a week of new instruction at the most. So you absolutely have permission to do 4 days a week, 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. And then if you think about that, if you stay 30 to, and I almost hesitate to say this, but 30 to 45 minutes, right? If you stay in that range, students aren't going to get over the 4 to 6 hours per day that we're talking about. So that when you think about it that way, that's what you're trying to think about. I would try and stay closer to 30, but I don't want somebody to panic and say, oh my God, I ran over for 5 minutes, or I what? Fine. We're trying to keep them at 4 to 6 hours per day.
Michael, Melissa Bonson has a question. Melissa?
I just wanted to clarify the attendance thing because I was trying to be as objective as possible before, saying like you had to have, because I thought we were told before we left that we had to have planning for all 5 days, even though, yes, we only saw them 3 or 4. So I've been trying to make a daily task in some form that I know that they're engaging with me. And if they met 4 out of 5, I was saying, okay, full attendance. So I don't have to be that objective. I can be more subjective than I've been. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right. And you're right. We started way tighter on attendance than
Yes.
where we are now. And 2 things happened. 1, we don't have to report to the state. And 2, as we started talking with other districts and when we started hearing different stories from families about what they can and cannot do, it's why we're making that pullback. So I appreciate where you were at. That's where we started. That's why there's confusion.
Okay.
And we're saying pull back from there.
No problem.
I just wanted to add that part of what I've been doing too is just checking in to see, because I make my schedules in Google Docs, so I can see which kids have actually opened it up. If they've gone through the effort of opening up my document, that's good. They're alive. Like, I think that's as minimal as we probably need to go with that. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's kind of what I've been doing.
Now, I mean, 2 things. Yes, they're alive. 2, they're engaging with your work in some way, right? So we would love for them to turn in everything. But and I would also say, if you have a due date during the week and they haven't hit that due date during the week, record it as missing to try and get a reaction from them that way. Send them a quick text message and say, hey, this was due. I just want, because then ideally we get it by Friday, right? So if you try to think about how to map that, it's that. But Taylor, yes, that the minimum is that they're engaging and they're connecting with the work.
Becky Peralt asked, is the 30 minutes of instruction or is it 30 minutes instruction of work, including instruction. Becky, why don't you unmute and explain that a little clearer?
So are we expecting 30 minutes per day total for our class? Or is it 30 minutes of like a Zoom class and then they have more work to do?
So that's a good question. And that's why I bridged it to 45, right? So if you think about 30 minutes a day, if they have a full schedule in 8 classes and they do 30 minutes a day, then you're tucked on to 4 hours. So if you give them an assignment to do beyond that, that takes 15-ish minutes, everybody could do that and hit 45 minutes and you'd still be at that 6-hour limit, right? So when you look at that, I'd say 30 to 45, including instruction and expectation for work. The difference is if you're giving them an assessment, and I know our math teachers are doing a lot of this and some other people are as well, that assessment might be 1 hour straight up. You do the assessment during this time, at this time, and that's what you do. That's totally fine. Just don't assign anything else. So 30 to 45 with work.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole Thompson says thank you.
See that? That one I can see. Some of them I can, if I'm looking in the right place, I can see if comments pop up as we go. Other questions?
Can I say something really quick? It's Tessa.
Yep, I got you.
Okay, cool. I was talking to one of my case managed students about his accommodations, and one accommodation he gets is extended time for tests, and he tests like 2 times for the duration of 2 times for what the general ed kids are getting. I just wanted to know if anyone is using like a timed test, like anything that will like lock you out. And if it does lock you out, can you touch base with their case manager to, make alternate arrangements or, yeah.
And that's a good comment. So if you are using a timed test, just might be good to make a connection and make sure that you're not inadvertently doing something that might be detrimental for those kids. So I think it's a really good comment. And I would say just check in to be sure. I do know some people are doing time tests, and I think when you're in a distance learning format, that's very appropriate. So
yeah.
We just want to make sure we accommodate for those students we need to.
Yeah, the student specifically who I'm thinking of has some difficulty like self-advocating for that. And like, I don't know that's happening unless I'm like doing a lot of asking. So yep. I'm just saying it here.
And it might be just a quick email to that student's teachers and just say, hey, just a reminder that blank, da-da-da-da-da.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, others.
Michael, I have a quick question. I made 30 minutes to 1 hour mandatory session once a week for each class. And some students do not attend. Although I set up the project, the assignments and everything, I still need to see the class at least half an hour once a week to check with them and then exactly explain what the plan is. If a student does not show up but submits the assignment, can I miss him absent?
No, they would be present.
Can I mark him absent?
No, they have to be present. They've engaged. So, I mean, the key is, have they engaged with the work and are they doing the work? And I appreciate where you're at. You want them to be in attendance at that live session. And there may be reasons that we don't know about that they can't, or they may just be pushing against us and they may not be doing it. But the purpose of attendance is they've engaged with the work. And if they do the assignment, they've engaged with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. How are we doing? Are we good?
Can I ask yep, go ahead.
Question. I just want to make sure that I'm doing the grading accurately. I had some students take some tests last week. I've made connections trying to get them to finish things or submit some work that wasn't done. If I've made those connections and they're still not doing it, I can just go ahead and put it in as either missing or a 0. I mean, I've seen it as a missing right now, but should I be then at some point changing that to a 0?
Yeah, and what I would do before I change it to 0, I'd get in touch with a parent and say, okay, I've given them these many chances to do this. If they don't do it by blank, this is where it's going to go. So, I mean, but I think, again, we're trying to give people grace, and it sounds like very much, Jennifer, you are. At some point, we got to have a grade in the grade book.
Right.
So that 0, that missing lives as a 0. At some point, you're going to have to turn that over. You know, if this does go through the end of the year, there may be more conversation on grading coming. Right now, we are where we are, and I don't. With how things are working right now, I'm really scared to say it will be blank all the way through to the end of the year because I just don't know. Right now, with grading, we are at that level.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Michael, this is Chris. I had a question.
Okay.
If we have a student that does not show up to take a test tomorrow, can we require that they make it up on Friday, or do we have to wait till April 20th?
No, you can require they make it up on Friday if you want. I mean, I think
That is Good Friday, Michael.
And I think the challenge is going to be if they say they can't, you know, if their family can't, if they're whatever, right? We got to respect that. There's not much we can do.
But Michael, are you saying this Friday, or because this Friday's Good Friday?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a difficult ask because, I mean, we don't have school. So I'm sorry. Normally on Friday, yes, for sure. This Friday is a difficult ask.
Yeah. I wouldn't even go there personally.
Is it okay to ask or not?
I think my ask, I would rather you push later into Thursday rather than push on Friday, which for some families is a holiday. And I don't know how they're managing that day this year for different families or what it might be. I think it's difficult to ask for the Friday. Normally, yes, when we don't have class and you have a Friday, normally, yes. And my brain was there. So this Friday, difficult.
My big concern was this Friday going into week's vacation, because if they miss an assessment tomorrow, and we've got like all of our Algebra 2 students in the building are taking a test tomorrow. It's a lot of kids. And so if they miss it, I don't want to wait 10 days to have them make up an assessment. They're going to do even worse. That was my thought. But.
No, Chris.
Yeah. I just think it's a tough, I don't think we can make that ask. I think as a parent, if I was celebrating that as a holiday, that would be tough to take.
You know, and it's all about how you word it. If you're talking to the student and you say, hey, listen, I'm around. If you want to take it, you're more than welcome to. I get it. You know, it's all how you word it.
Yeah.
You word it in a way like, you really need to get this done, and Friday's a good day. No, that's not so good, you know?
I can meet with you at a time later today. If you get to them tomorrow, I can meet with you at a time later today, or let me know a time that might work.
Okay.
And if they say, oh, I can do it tomorrow morning and that works for you, that's very different than saying you have to. Other questions, comments, thoughts? I think we are getting close to time. I don't know what we've got. First of all, thank you for people attending these. I hope these are valuable. We got, looks like 82 or so people in, which is really good. Hopefully this information is helpful to you.
Oh, he froze again. Can I, Michael, he's going to keep talking. Can I say one thing? He freezes for everybody, right?
It's painful to sit at a computer all day long and sit and moving around. Oh, I froze.
You're back, I think, Michael.
I think I'm back now. Okay. I just was saying it's painful to sit at a chair all day long. I don't know if anybody else is having those problems, but just take some time away. Try, I know it's really a strange time. Try and take some time where you can step away and enjoy some of your spring break. It's really important. I can't be prouder of the work that's being done on our staff and with our students. I know there are challenges. I know there are struggles. We're going to have that, but overall, we're knocking it out of the park. Comparisons with other districts, when I'm hearing feedback we're getting, even from teachers and our own staff, we're doing really, really well. And that's because of you people and everything that you're doing. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good day tomorrow and enjoy your spring break. Thanks.
Special ed teachers, I'll see you in the next meeting.